Hey guys, welcome to part 10 of our breeding series. Apologies, it's been a while since I uploaded. I had a few hardware issues, but I've managed to fix it by buying a USB hub so I can actually have more than one device working at a time. In this episode we're going to be covering transparent walls as well as transparent roofs. And finally, we have consolidated all of our transport objects into one, which means that no matter how large your game gets, you can just use one transport object, and it's going to make your life a lot easier in the long run. So let's get started. Hey guys, so in previous episodes, we had several different objects for transporting our player from area to area, and 4 objects for that task is too many. Imagine if you have a much larger game and you've got dozens or hundreds of transport objects all doing the same task. It just makes things redundant, especially if you have to change something in each of the objects that you'd only have to do once if you only had one object. So I've done a bit of research, watched a few videos, and the best one that I like just has us changing the code in the create event in the room object. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to delete 3 of our transport objects. And we're going to rename the last one to just obj transport. Okay. And bearing in mind that every time we enter a new room, we're creating a new instance of obj player. We're gonna every time the player is created, we're gonna move him to the appropriate coordinates, and these coordinates are going to be 2 global variables, and they're going to be set every time the player collides with obj transport. So we're going to say x equals global dot player x, y equals global dot player y. Going to check the code inside here. So the create event is fine, but in the step event, instead of room go to room adventure, we're going to say room go to transport room, and we're also going to say global dot player x equals transport x, global.player y equals transport y. Okay, so we've got a few variables to use, so it's time to use them. So the first transport is going to be from the exterior to the adventure room. If you double click on the object, this should pop up. And if we go into the creation code, this code is only going to affect this particular instance of the object. It's not going to change the code in the object, it's just going to affect this instance. And this is why we can do it with just one object. So we're going to say transport room equals room adventure. Transport x, transport y. So to get the transport x and y, we're going to need to go into room adventure, and we want it to spawn here. So again, double click, and it should give us the x and y, which is 640 by 896. Actually, no, we want to get the coordinates for this player. We want to spawn a player here. So double click on the player and we want 640 by 800. So 640 by 800. And we're going to add another transport object here. Same thing again, double click, creation code, transport X, transport Y, transport room equals room home int. Now if we go to room home int, we want the player to spawn. We're going to make it spawn here. Oh, we'll leave it spawn there. That's okay for now. And the coordinates are 576 480. So 576 480. So that's one room done. If we now go to Room Adventure, double click on this one, creation code, transport room equals RM home exterior, transport X, transport Y. So we want him to appear here. Just find out the coordinates. That will be 576 by 64. .576 by 64. And just one more to go. In home interior, transport object there, I think. And double click, creation code, transport room equals room home exterior, transport X equals transport Y equals. And we want these coordinates here, which is 576 by 576. Cool. And let's just check the play for a minute. Okay, the last thing we need to do is in obj main, if I move the player around now, we should be able to transport from area to area like we did before. But now we're only using one object. Oops. Okay, cool. You may also have noticed that I've made some changes to the sprites. This is going to be so we can actually have some collision and transparent roofs going on. The next thing that I want to fix is on my laptop screen of 1600 by 900, the bottom of the room is being cut off. This is because I don't have my view set up properly. So let's go into the views, viewport. I'm going to give every room the same view, and I want it to cover the whole room. It's 1280 by 640. Is that right? What's the size of the room? 960, sorry. And I wanted to display it in 640 by 480. So this whole room is going to be scaled down into 640 by 480. Oh, that's wrong. Sorry, width 640, height 480. So I'm just going to do the same thing for the next two rooms. Viewport visible. Okay, so this one's already set up for 640 by 480. Let's do the next one. So enable viewport visible. 1280 by 960, and viewport will be 640 by 480. Okay, let's just quickly test this to make sure it's working. Okay, that's much better. Let's just have a battle. And we can now see the text in the bottom of the screen. Awesome. Let's exit from here for now. So the next thing I want to work on is having transparent roofs and walls for the interior and exterior locations. So for the house, I've got two sprites. I've got this one without the roof, and I've got the roof itself. Both of these sprites have the origin in the top left. So if I go into OBJ house, I want a new draw event, and it's going to draw the roof. First thing we need is draw self, otherwise it won't draw itself. And we want a variable called roof height. That's going to be sprite get height SPR roof 0. And now we want to draw the roof, so draw sprite SPR roof 0 sub image 0, same x coordinate, and the y coordinate is going to be y. It's the top left of this sprite. Take away the height of the roof, and if we run the game, we should see a complete house now. Oops. My bad. Typing mistake. Okay, so now we have a building with a roof. Still doesn't go transparent. Alright, so we're going to need to have a new layer for buildings. So right click, well, actually create new instance layer, and we're going to call it building layer. Try again. Building layer. And depth, that's fine. So this should be drawn over everything else. And we need to delete the house object and add it into the building layer now. Like that. Okay, cool. Now that we have this, we want to go into, we want to change this function actually. We want to draw sprite ext. I think that'll be a good one. So SPR roof 0 0 0 x y minus roof height, x scale 1, y scale 1, rotation 0, color C white, alpha is alpha, and that's what we're going to use to change the transparency. And we're going to do that in the step event. So create event first, alpha equals 1, step event change the alpha. So x1 equals x, y1 equals y minus sprite get height SPR roof 0 0. x2 equals x plus sprite width, y2 equals y. Yeah, that's fine. And then we want to say if collision rectangle x1, y1, x2, y2, obj player, false, false. So if we're colliding with the player, alpha equals 0.5. Else, if we're not colliding, alpha equals 1. And the collision box is just a rectangle around the roof sprite. I'm not checking for collision with the house object. It's just a collision with the roof sprite. So let's just give this a test. Make sure it works okay. So if I move up now, see the roof is transparent, and we can still see the player. We can't see the player when he's behind the building, but if we go up, we can. There's still no collision, so when we've done collision, you won't be able to walk underneath the building. You'll just be stuck, and you have to move to the left or right or up. Okay, so now that we've achieved this, let's do the same in the interior. Okay, so at the moment I'm not using an object to draw the building inside room home interior. I just have it as the background. So I think what I'll do is I'll just have an object for the wall. So let's make that now. Obj wall 0 sprite will be interior wall 0. And we're going to basically have the same setup. So we're going to have setup variables alpha equals 1, step event, check for collision, set alpha, x1 equals x, y1 equals y, x2 equals x plus sprite width, y2 equals y plus sprite height. Okay, if collision rectangle x1 y1 x2 y2 obj player false false, then alpha equals 0.5, else alpha equals 1. What we might do if I'm just thinking, if we ever want to change the alpha to something other than 0.5, every time we change it, we're going to need to change it for every object. So it might be worth having a global alpha. So let's do that now. Actually, alpha equals global dot alpha trans. Yeah, copy this, paste it in the step event of obj house, and in obj main set up alpha trans equals 0.5. So anytime we want to change the transparency, if it's not transparent enough or if it's too transparent, we can just change it once, and we don't have to go into every object to change that. Okay, now draw event, draw self. So we're not going to say draw self, otherwise it will just be drawn. It'll just be fully transparent. We're going to say draw sprite ext sprite index, so the sprite that's assigned to the object, sub image 0 xy 1 1 0 c white and alpha. Okay, let's now test the interior. Oh, it would help if I put the object into the room first. So we need, yeah, we're going to need a new layer as before. So new instance layer. Rename it to wall layer, and we're just going to need the wall here. Let's turn off the grid for this so I can get pixel perfect placement. That looks okay to me so far. Just want to make sure the teleport matches the doorway. That's more like it. Okay, now I can move the layer back. Alright, so let's test this now. We should have a nice effect. Let's go in the house, and we have a transparent wall. I'm not keen on how I want to change the actual where the warp occurs. I don't really like how it kind of, you have to connect straight away. Let's just hide the wall layer for a minute and go to instances. Just change it to around there. So you're gonna have to be almost to the very bottom to warp out. Let's test that again. Okay, yeah, I like that better. So you have to walk to the actual door before you warp out. I prefer that. We could even do the same for the exterior. So just move this up some more, and you'd have to walk at least here before you warp out. I prefer that. Okie doke. There's one more thing that I think we've got time for today, and it's related to cleaning up. I had everything set up in the destroy event, but there's actually a much better event to use, which is the cleanup event. So in every object where we have a destroy event, we want to change it to cleanup. It's quite easy to fix. All you have to do is right click, then change event, and change it to cleanup. So just check through any objects with a destroy event, change it to cleanup. The reason it's better is regardless of how the instance is destroyed, so whether it's like a room change or the game crashes or closes or the game ends, the cleanup event will still be run, and you can use it for other things as well. You know, like to run pieces of code that you definitely want to run no matter what after the instance is destroyed. So it's quite useful. The obj grid change event cleanup. And one more thing, I don't know if you're aware that there's a thing called accesses in GameMaker, and it's used for basically for DS, any data structures. What I found is when I changed it to cleanup event, it was actually properly cleaning up a DS grid by destroying it. One thing we should add as well is DS grid equals -1. This will, because every time we create a data structure, it gets assigned a number in the same way an instance does, like an ID, and by changing it to -1, it's going to stop it being used or being referenced. But the issue we had, or that I had, is by not using an accessor, I was basically turning this DS grid data structure into an array, and so DS grid destroy wasn't recognizing DS grid as a data structure because I changed it into an array. And the accessor to use for DS grids is a hashtag like this, and this is how to properly use or to change a data structure. We also need to change it in the draw event, so if DS grid accessor xxyy equals 1, and do this. Okay, let's just run the game and make sure this is working as intended. So we need to go to, and if we come back, okay, cool, no error message, that means it's working as intended. That's fine. Alright, so I'm going to leave it there for now, guys. One thing I definitely want to do for next episode is collision, because I'm not really happy that we can walk anywhere we want. And then we'll go from there. Bye for now.